we're on. So, and now my screen is not working anymore, so I can't shift as usual. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong. So what makes a good presentation? The amazing thing about TED Talks, and I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible so that we can leave time for questions and interactions if you have any. And this is directed to Karina and Razan in particular, and not the cabinet, because the cabinet knows this stuff supposedly. So I'm going to make it about any presentation, because what's lovely about TED presentations is that, or presentations in general, is that what makes one good presentation works across all platforms. So whether you're giving a TED Talk, whether you're giving a Toastmasters speech, whether you're giving a technical presentation, it should be the same. And so we're going to be covering all the different parts of the presentation that make a really good presentation, from the planning to the content, to the delivery, to the slides, and how to control your anxiety and everything else for that matter. But before we begin, I am going to show you a TED Talk. Can you hear this, by the way? Audio is fine?
No, not yet.
No.
Okay. Let's see what the problem with the audio is. You should just, okay, let's try this again. Can you hear the birds?
No.
Applause.
If you want, when you share your screen, just choose active speaker, maybe.
Yes, I got that right now. Oh, it's not going to allow me because I need to restart my audio sharing application and download something. So this is what I'm going to be doing. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it from here. Let's see. Just give me a thumbs up if you do.
Hear that? That's nothing. Which is what I, as a speaker at today's conference, have for you all. I have nothing. Nada. Zip. Zilch. Zippo. Nothing smart. Nothing inspirational. Nothing even remotely researched at all. I have absolutely nothing to say whatsoever. And yet, through my manner of speaking, I will make it seem like I do. Like what I am saying is brilliant. And maybe, just maybe, you will feel like you've learned something. Now, I'm going to get started with the opening. I'm going to make a lot of hand gestures. I'm going to do this with my right hand. I'm going to do this with my left. I'm going to adjust my glasses. And then I'm going to ask you all a question. By show of hands, how many of you all have been asked a question before? Okay, great. I'm seeing some hands. And again, I have nothing here. Now, I'm going to react to that and act like I'm telling you a personal anecdote. Something to break the tension, something to endear myself a little bit, something kind of embarrassing. And you guys are going to make an awe sound. It's true. It really happened. And now I'm going to bring it to a broader point. I'm going to reel you back in. I'm going to make it intellectual. I'm going to bring it to this man right here. Now, what this man did was important, I'm sure. But I, for one, have no idea who he is. I simply Google image the word scientist. And now, you see, I'd like it to seem like I'm making points, building an argument, inspiring you to change your life, when in reality, this is just me buying time. Now, if you don't believe me, let's take a look at the numbers. This is a real thing that's happening right now. The number of talks that I'm giving is 1. Interesting facts imparted thus far in said talk, well, that's going to be a 0. My height in inches is 70.5. Note the 0.5 there. 2 times 6 equals 12. And then interestingly enough, 6 times 2 also equals 12. That's math. 352 is a 3-digit number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then almost immediately following that, we get 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, to add more filler here, I'm going to give you a couple more numbers to consider. 18, 237, 5,601, 2.6 million, 4, 24, staggering. These are real numbers, all of them. And to follow that up, let's take a look at some graphs. Now, if you take a look at this pie chart, what you're going to see is that the majority far exceeds the minority. Everybody see that? Cool, isn't it? And let's take a look at this bar graph because it shows similarly irrelevant data. Now, I'm doing this because I'd like to make it seem like I've done my homework. If you were, say, watching this on YouTube with the sound off, you might think, huh, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. But I don't. I'm floundering, panicking, I've got nothing. I'm a total and utter phony. But you know what? I was offered a TED Talk. And damn it, I'm gonna see it through. Now, if you take a look behind me, these are just words paired with vaguely thought-provoking stock photos. I'm gonna point at them like I'm making use both of my time as well as your time, but in reality, I don't know what half of them mean. And now as these continue, I'm just gonna start saying gibberish. Wagga wah, gabba gabba, turkey, mouth in a mouth, chip, trip, my dog skip. Rip it and dip it, Richard. I'm an itty bitty baby bopper, and I'm hungry in my tum-tum. Brad Pitt, Uma Thurman. Names, things, words, and more things. And see, it feels like it might make sense, doesn't it? Like maybe, just maybe, I'm building to some sort of satisfying conclusion. I mean, I'm gesticulating as though I am. I'm pacing, I'm growing in intensity. I'm taking off my glasses, which, by the way, are just frames. I wore them to look smart, even though my vision is perfect. And now I'm going to slow things down a little bit. I'm going to change the tone. I'm going to make it seem like I'm building to a moment. And what if I was? Amazing, isn't it? What can you do? Life's a roller coaster. You know, if there's one thing you take away from my talk, I'd like you to think about what you heard at the beginning. And I'd like you to think about what you hear now. Because it was nothing, and it's still nothing. Think about that. Or don't, that's fine. And now I'm going to stop talking. Thank you.
Oh, this guy. So just like we saw in this talk, it's the talk is not just the idea that you're sharing, right? Because it can be nothing at all, and it will still be a TED talk, right? So, so to start with this, oops, sorry. Okay, so the most important part of any presentation is actually the planning of the presentation. So, you know, you have your subject, your audience, and the objective. Usually with the TED Talk, what we concentrate on are 4 things: the idea, okay, which is the idea worth sharing, the purpose. So what is your purpose? Is it to entertain, like this guy? Is it to inform? Is it to persuade? And following this idea worth sharing, it's your actual call for action. What do you want your audience to do at the end of your talk? Do you want them to say, oh, well, we enjoyed this talk, that was humorous, that was engaging? Or do you want them to say, now I know a lot more about fill in the blanks? Or do you want them to take an action, like go sign a petition or go out to the streets and do something? What is it that you want your audience to do at the end of the talk? So keeping this in mind is actually very important for you as well as you are planning your TED Talk. And of course, you know, what we really, really care about is the time, because studies show that the shorter your presentation, the more efficient it is. So what you normally will take 10 minutes to say, you can say in 4 minutes. So we're always trying to cut down on time because we've come to realize that the most effective TED Talks, the most viewed, the most shared are the ones that are 6 to 9 minutes long. So whatever you want to say, however grand your idea is, you can say it in 6 to 9 minutes. So this is very important. So going back to the planning, know your subject, know your audience, and know your objective. So, and the objective corresponds to your purpose, and it corresponds to the call of action. The audience with a TED Talk is an international audience, right? Unless your TED Talk is in Arabic or your TED Talk is in a different language, that limits somehow your audience members. But we still have subtitles, so that is still fine. But in general, your audience is as broad as can be. Okay, moving on, we're going to take a look at how you plan for clarity. So when you think about the subject, you don't have time to say everything, and we're going to go over what you can say and how many items can you say, what should you share, and how should you share it. And the audience, you need to know at least, about the level of the people you're talking to. I know that TED audience is a little bit more informed than other audience members, not just like on the day of the event, but even after, when people are watching it on the TED channel or on YouTube or wherever it's shared, they're usually people who watch TED are come with some information, some background information, and so they are normally educated, informed, well versed, etc. Of course, as I talked about before, the objective, what do you want to accomplish, what do you want your audience to do, etc., etc. And excuse my grammatical error here. Know who you're talking to, not know whom you're talking to. Okay, let's begin with the content. Any talk, especially a TED Talk, should have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion, and should focus on memory and recall. When I say introduction, this means that you have to hook your audience in, right? So how do you hook your audience in? You hook your audience in with a story. You hook your audience in with some interesting facts or statistics. You can hook your audience in with a game, or maybe even humor. If you're capable of humor, go ahead and use humor. But of course, again, think about your audience. Will they understand it? Is it something that is appropriate, etc., etc.? So your introduction is probably the most important part of your talk, because this is what hooks the audience in, right? And then so when you're hooking your audience in, usually the most effective method is, as I said, you can use statistics, you can use facts, you can use a game, you can use a set of questions and answers, interact with your audience. One of the most effective methods is actually telling a story. Telling a story can be very, very engaging. Because this is what people like to listen to. Once you tell an audience, I'm going to tell you a story, they're all ears. Once you say the words, once upon a time, everybody listens, because everybody is in for a good story, right? Okay, so moving on. So a presentation is a story with a beginning and the middle and end. And you can begin with a story and then treat the entire speech as a story. That would make it the most effective. So I think I'm ahead of myself over here a little bit. Moving on. So when it comes to sharing the information, apply the rule of 3. you should not have more than 3 controlling ideas in any talk. But you also need to know that these 3 ideas need to be somehow presented in a concrete way, something that people will understand. Let it not be vague. Let it be applicable. Let it be tangible. So if you're using statistics, make the statistics tangible, or something that they can understand. So instead of saying, for example, Lay's produces 200 tons of chips every year, you can say Lay's produces what's equivalent to 2 Empire State Buildings of chips every year, right? So that would make it a little bit more concrete, something that people can visualize, people can see how vast this is. It doesn't have to be something that is very, very vague. I like to steal some of Dina's ideas when it comes to the rule of 3. We are always talking about the rule of 3 as being very, very important. So 3 is a magical number. Arabs used to say, never travel alone, never travel with just one person. 2 people should not travel together. It should always be 3, because 2 people can fight and go different ways, but if they have a third person, that person can reconcile the other 2. So the rule of 3 is very important, and I'm stealing some examples here from Dina about the importance of the rule of 3. Like, for example, think of the Declaration of Independence. It says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? So you have 3 things over there. Or Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, when he says government of the people, by the people, for the people. Think about it. It's 3 things, right? So it's so memorable. And my favorite, Starbucks tall grande venti. So thank you, Dina, for the examples. I'm always using them. Do you have any questions? I'm going to pause for a second to see if because I can see that Karina is taking some notes. So maybe you have some questions?
I was just thinking of, let's say, for example, okay, it might be a bit off topic. Let's say, for example, at some point, I would really want to give a TED Talk, and, you know, I had the aha moment, like the whole presentation is complete in my head. Who do I contact? Yeah, this is kind of irrelevant.
You can check out, for example, the different TED conferences that are out. Usually people are targeted by the organizing committee, but sometimes you see a call for a TED. So if you're interested in a TED Talk, you can always follow the different accounts and see when they have a call for a presentation or a call for an idea, right?
Yeah.
So you can, like, there are so many around the world. I know some TED conferences, TEDx conferences have more money than others. Some might be able to even pay for your airplane ticket or maybe accommodations. Some don't. In general, we don't pay our speakers to speak or for our speakers to speak, but you never know. You might be able to, like, if you're visiting a particular country, you can always see if they have a TED conference and join that. The thing is, even if you have an idea, even if you have a full talk in your head, you would still have to go through the training. You still have to work with one person. So you have your talk and everything, but they will most probably dissect it and eviscerate it more or less, like cut it up and tell you, you should remove this, you should add this, you should do this and that, etc.
It's just that I have a friend who I guess did give a TED Talk here in Lebanon, and I believe that in AUB they do have some programs, right?
Do you remember which TED Talk? Because I mean, we know all of them. We collaborate all the time.
His name is Tariq, and he spoke about his MS journey, and he has multiple sclerosis, and he talked about his journey with music. with music.
Which TED talk did TEDx talk? I mean, which TEDx platform did he present on?
I
Like
do not
TEDx
have any
AUB
idea.
and AU. I think because I think we had
Probably AUB.
I think we did have a speaker before I joined. We did have a speaker talk about MS.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So so keep it simple, keep it down to 3 ideas, as I said before, and within these 3 ideas, as you are talking about them, you can have for every single idea, you can have like 3 sub ideas, but not more. Don't just overwhelm your audience, because remember, it has to be memorable and it has to have an effect on them. Okay. So for the conclusion, of course, you have to review your points and leave them with something to think about, even if it is a TED talk. So you have to link it back to the beginning, to where you started, and then have the impact. Throw the bomb, figuratively, especially in Lebanon. I can't use this example without having to clarify that it is figurative. What you need to do is depart with your call for action. Depart with whatever you want them to get out of this talk. So it's very important that you do that. You remind them of that by not stating it directly. Don't tell them, oh, what I want you to do right now. Sometimes you can, especially if it is a persuasive speech. If you are trying to persuade them, tell them, this is what you can do. This is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to do after. But if you're just informing, you can tell them, so just to recap, we talked about this and that. Or maybe you can say, just like the guy in the video, who was talking about nothing. He said, think about what I said at the beginning of my talk and think about what I'm saying now. It was nothing. It's still nothing, right? So,
Esther, can I interrupt you, please?
Sure.
In one of the workshops about public speaking, they recommended ending our speech with a question. So even if you want to call for action, you would ask your audience a question. It will keep them thinking about the answer, and in some way we're going to be calling for action, but in an embedded form.
Yes. So there are so many different ways of ending a speech. A question is one of them. It doesn't have to be always a question. A question is a good way to end your speech, but it's not the only way. Just like the introduction, you can always end with some facts. You can end with a call for action. You can end with a story, and you can end with a question, right? So you have so many different things that you can end your speech with, and they're all equally effective. Now, when do you not end with a question? Or actually, preferably, you should end with a question if you have a Q&A after. So what you can do is you can help your audience by asking the first question, right? So this way you'll get the conversation rolling, you'll get the people talking, and you'll get the you'll help them warm up in a sense. Okay. So the problem with most conclusions is that they're either non-existent or an afterthought, like somebody realizes, oh, I need to have a conclusion, or they are unrelated. So keep in mind that you should have a conclusion and it should be related to your talk. So it's very important to do that. And do not sacrifice your conclusion. If you are to sacrifice anything, you should sacrifice some of your content rather than the conclusion. Never ever sacrifice your conclusion, because this is what makes your talk memorable. Not just the introduction. The introduction hooks them in, and then you say whatever you want to say, and then the conclusion has this impact on them where they're going to leave and think and remember your talk for the next 30 minutes or day or two, which is really a good thing. They might not be able to recall every single thing, but they will at least recall that they truly enjoyed this talk. But if you have to cut it off or stop talking after you've just finished your ideas, they're not going to remember it. They're not going to remember your talk very well. It's not going to have this effect on them. So the introduction, the conclusion, the signposts, and the transitions that you use, we'll talk about them in a second, help with the memory and recall. These help the people know what you are talking about or what you will be talking about. And for that, I'm going to let you in on a little secret called the golden rule. The golden rule of public speaking. So the golden rule of public speaking is very simple. You tell them what you're going to be telling them, then you tell them, and then you tell them what you have told them. I'm going to say this again. You tell them what you're going to be telling them, you tell them, and then you tell them what you have told them. So basically, you're introducing your idea, then you're saying your idea, and then you are reminding them of your idea.
Professor, a TED Talk applied this golden rule. I forgot his name, but I remember in one of his TED Talks, I think it was in 2018, he started his talk by saying that each person is as unique as a flower. He had a flower in his hand, and then he came up with the content, he delivered the ideas he wanted to say, and then he ended all his topic with the flower, and he used this golden rule where he told us what he's gonna be saying. He told us the story and the concept, and in the end, he linked it back again to the first idea he started his talk with.
And it was very effective. For sure, I know which one you're talking about, but I can't remember the name of the speaker.
Me too. I forgot his name. He's a guy.
Yeah, I remember that, but it was such a long time ago, and I watch a lot of that talk, so sometimes I can't remember. Like, I have to look it up again. So another thing that is very important is to have these transitions, what we call signposts. They can be verbal, so you can say, for example, now that I've talked about this, I'm going to be talking about point number 2, or you can make it less obvious by saying first, second, third, on one hand, on the other hand, moving on. To wrap this up, whatever, these are all verbal signposts. And you can use nonverbal signposts, and nonverbal signposts are gestures. So you can either indicate that you're going to be saying something else with your voice, right? Or you can wrap it up with your voice as well, or you can use your hands. So you can say 1, 2, and 3. We're going to bring it up a bit. We're going to bring it down a bit. Like, use your hands on one hand, on the other hand, so you can gesture. So it's very, it's a way to enhance whatever you're saying, whatever you're verbally saying, by adding some body language to it. So even if you're giving a talk virtually, you can still use that. Don't overdo it. It's funny because it's also very cultural. So, and like, for example, in the United States, people are realizing the importance of body language. And so they're using more gestures as they talk. I'm going to give you one example from the 2016, 2017 elections. I can't remember the year now. So when Hillary Clinton was running for president, somebody must have told her, you are too rigid. You need to be gesturing. You need to move your hands. And so she would move her hands, but then she would move her hands after she said whatever she was saying. Like, she would say, we need to be stronger. And then remember that she needs to gesture, and she would go like this, like, stronger. And then it was very, very funny. In Lebanon, we love to gesture. So we're always moving our hands. I remember I was born and raised outside of Lebanon, but my parents used to send me to an Arabic school, to a Lebanese school. And they used to tell me that you need to memorize a poem and recite it. And it's so important that you gesture with your hands. So you say, سقف بيتي حديد ركن بيتي حجر, and then you'd have to like do the gestures and everything. So it was really, really funny for me because I wasn't used to it. But when I came back to Lebanon, I saw that this was the case over here. In India, for example, people use their heads to gesture. So if you have an Indian friend, you would notice that they would talk a lot by bobbing their heads all the time. So it's like this, and it's part of the culture. It's very important that you do the bob, right? In Iran, for example, which falls in the middle somehow between India and the Arab world, they do both. Like all my Iranian friends speak like this. So it's really, really sweet. I'm always pointing it out to them. So I do that as well when I'm talking to them, because it's, you have to mirror sometimes people's body language for them to feel like they can trust you. So I'm always like doing that, and then they like it, they love it. They're like, oh, you're just one of them, one of us, and all that. You make them feel that you're one of them. All right, so moving on. When it comes to the delivery, we're going to be talking about the nonverbal as well as the verbal. And I wanted to show you this graph that talks about meaning. The funny thing is that 7% of meaning is derived from actual words spoken. 55% is derived from facial expressions. So 55%, that's half or a little bit more than half of whatever meaning they get from your talk is taken from your facial expressions. So if they cannot see you, they're not going to understand the meaning, because half of it is, or they will understand only half of it. 38% is derived from how words are said. And just to stop here for a second and tell you and share this with you, one of the comments that I got from my students were commenting last semester, like in the ICEs, they were talking about my delivery and all that. They said one of the things that they enjoyed was the fact that I turned on my camera during the few synchronous sessions that we had. And I was just amazed, like, why would a teacher not turn on her camera? Because it's so important that students see your facial reactions and gather the meaning or get the meaning out of the way you're portraying them, like the way you speak your words, the way you say your words, and how they should get it. Because the words alone and the way you pronounce the words or the intonation and all that is just half of the meaning. 38% is derived from how words are said, the way you emphasize, the intonation, the delivery, all of that. So having said that, let's talk a little bit about the verbal. It's about your word choice, the style, all of these emphasize the content and then capture the attention. Let me give you an example, because, of course, I'm all about examples, and this is what clarifies everything. Remember, make everything concrete, right? So if I don't give you an example, I'm not doing what I'm preaching. John F. Kennedy did not say, you should not ask yourself what your country is doing for you. You should ask yourself what you are doing for your country. He didn't say it that way. What did he say? He said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country, right? So the way he shifted the sentence structure made all the difference. And then, of course, the famous words of Julius Caesar, I came, I saw, I conquered, right? So it's just 3 very simple words. Or for example, Martin Luther King, when he kept repeating this one refrain, I have a dream, right? So that made all the difference. It's the impact that these words have on you. Karina, I think you used this very well in your 1 minute pitch. When even though your sentence was in the negative,
Yeah.
do not
And
do not do not even though it was in the negative, it had a very, very impactful or it actually had a very strong impact on the listener, right? Because you kept repeating. Repetition is very important in public speaking.
Professor?
Yes?
Here I believe that Karina's word, how not to raise a girl, even though it's used in the negative connotation, but it was attractive to the speaker because it creates kind of a shock. نحن كلنا معودين how to raise your kid, how to raise your girl. So here by saying not to raise a girl, she went against the odds, and that was actually attractive.
Very, very effective, yes. And because she kept repeating it, the repetition was very important that she did that, right? So these are just few examples of how you can use the verbal to your advantage. Take advantage of poetry. Take advantage of writing your speech in a poetic way so that you maximize the impact of your delivery, right? The words have a very huge impact and you want them to have a lasting impact. And so the way you structure your sentences don't sound like a book. You're not reading your speech, you're speaking it, you're singing it. Even though you're not singing it, you're singing it, you're delivering a poem. This is what makes stand-up poetry or spoken word poetry, spoken word poetry so effective. It's the delivery. It's not just the words. It's the way you are delivering. And if you can bring in this element to your speech, you can make all the difference. Okay? So moving on, the nonverbal is equally important. How you maintain eye contact, how you gesture, your movement, the way you stand, the way you articulate, vocalize, the way you pace if you're face to face. Those things are not easy to do, and I think the best way to practice and prepare for them is to actually deliver your speech in front of a mirror first, and maybe have somebody record it for you and see yourself and correct these little quirks that you might have. Also, ladies, if you have a tendency to twirl your hair if you're talking, pull it back. Don't wear jewelry or anything that's going to take away from your delivery, like something that clinks or clanks. Don't do that. Also, try to wear colors that are not going to take away from your speech. So try to wear neutral colors so that people are not focused, even if just for a second or two, on what you're wearing. Okay, so look, it's all about the speech. It's not about, you don't want to be the visual aid here. Okay. If you're going to be using slides, I hate slides, by the way. I'm not practicing what I'm preaching, but slides take away a lot from your talk. This is why we discourage using slides in a TED talk unless it is pretty necessary. Keep them simple in content and design, and make sure that their purpose is to enhance and not to replace. People usually hide behind the slides. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't hide behind your slides. And they are the last thing you prepare, not the first thing you prepare in your speech. People start like, oh, I have a presentation, and then they open up PowerPoint and they start typing in everything wrong. Shouldn't do that. And then look at this over here. This is so cluttered. We have a rule of 3 by 3, which means 3 points, 3 words each. Or if you really, really have so much to say, like, for example, you're presenting the results of a report or a study or something for a class, etc., you can use the 5 by 5, which means 5 points, 5 words for each point. You don't need to use full or wordy sentences because they can become very, very long, just like this, this slide says, and make it much harder for the audience to follow. They will make it difficult for you to quickly look at it if you need a reminder of where you're at. Don't use full or wordy sentences. Font should be legible, preferably sans serif, so without all these curly things around. Starting with a verb can help. You do not need to use standard designs as long as they are not as long as they're not distracting. Decrease the amount of information include, and then also have consistency. Everything that this slide is not, this is what your slide should be. Because this is too bad. No consistency, too much information.
The font is annoying as well.
The font is annoying because it's serif,
and
the color, everything. Yeah. So let's take a look at this example. So, okay, you're trying to be cute. This looks more like an Instagram story that I would post. All the photos and everything. It's very bad. So this is the before. We're looking at the plan. Here we have target major corporate customers, reinforce our position with current customers, outmaneuver competitors, move into new markets. And this is the after. Look at this. This is much, much better, right? And the colors are more beautiful, clearer, the font, and it looks professional.
The logo shapes are more professional than pictures in some way.
Sometimes.
Because probably they have less colors and they're less crowded or mixed up.
Yes, definitely. And since you've mentioned this, how many colors do we have in this slide?
3, 4, white, yellow, 2 shades of blue. The dark and the light.
And then the gray on the side as well over here. So they're very, very limited, and this is really good. Okay, not have too much and keep some white spaces or empty spaces there, which can be very, very important. Okay, moving on. Finally, anxiety. I hate this picture, but I couldn't find anything better. What causes your anxiety and how do you deal with it? What causes anxiety?
Fear and overthinking. What if something went wrong? What if people judge? What if I made a mistake? I made a fool of myself. I forgot some lines. Yeah, a lot.
Definitely. So what happens in you is that your brain realizes that you have something very important coming up, gives you this adrenaline rush to try to keep you from falling asleep and to try to help you. So your body, because we've developed over millions of years, so we haven't been giving speeches for that long. We've been giving speeches for what, like 2,000 years? We still haven't adjusted properly. But this adrenaline rush, you can use to your advantage by recognizing that your body is trying to help you. Your body is trying to give you some energy so that you don't fall asleep on stage. Your body is trying to keep you alert and awake. But just by registering this and being mindful of that helps you lower your anxiety. And of course, it takes plenty of practice and other things. So 7% of speakers have social anxiety, and 93% of people or speakers are just nervous. And those people will tell you, I'm not scared of public speaking. No, everybody's scared of public speaking. In fact, Seinfeld, do you guys know Seinfeld, or am I too old and referring to something that is very, very old? But Jerry Seinfeld says...
No, I don't know him.
You don't know? You've heard of him?
No.
Look him up. Okay.
Okay.
They used to show his show a long time ago. So people were like, maybe 3 years ago, whenever I used to ask this question, people knew who Seinfeld was or Jerry Seinfeld is. So Seinfeld, he's a comedian, and he had a really funny show on TV. And he used to say that if you go to deliver a eulogy, at a funeral, the minute you stand up at the podium, you'd rather be the person in the casket than the person giving the speech, because this is how petrifying speeches are. Everybody's scared of public speaking. Every single person, no exception, including the best speakers. And let me give you an example. So you think that people, they're just like confident and they know what they're doing and they can do it, and lucky them, they practice. They just practice. That's all it is.
Professor, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm sorry I'm interrupting a lot,
No,
but I
it's
have
fine.
some questions on mind. I want to tell you about my personal experience. When I started like delivering speeches, it wasn't frightful to me as it is now. I remember the first time I delivered a speech, it was part of the AFDC community in my village, my hometown, Ras Al Matan. And I delivered the speech at the age of 11. I think I was 11 years old in front of a lot of people from my hometown. Okay, I was nervous, but not that frightened. When I grew up, I attend a lot of public speaking seminars and workshops. So بالworkshops, let's say, بيكون في table topic at the end. And I'm the type who is always like ready to go. I would always raise my hand and engage. But time after time, I realized it's becoming more scary for me. And I'm being هيك regretful. يعني كنت أول شيء I would go on like دغري, so excited, so happy. Now I think about it like once or twice before I do it. Isn't it supposed to be the other way? What's happening?
You've become wiser.
Okay.
You've become wiser. You're more aware of your shortcomings and what needs to be improved. And this is why your anxiety kicks in. It's normal and it's the way it's supposed to be. The best way to combat it is to prepare. Prepare even for the table topics, right? Prepare. Know how to prepare. Have a strategy. Hone your skills. Keep on taking more opportunities in public speaking that will help you improve your skills. So you're fine. You're fine. There's nothing wrong. In fact, this is how it is. Children are much more forward because they're uninhibited. They don't have anything to fear. We adults are more scared because we know the consequences of what we do, etc., etc. So our enthusiasm can be curbed with our fear, but it's not a bad thing, I think. So the thing to do is to breathe. Maybe do a power pose by like expanding yourself, making yourself look big and great, just like Amy Cuddy in her talk. Your body language affects your, I can't remember the title, but we will look it up. I think Dina can share the link with you later. So in her research, she finds out that if you do the power posing for 2 minutes, you will raise your testosterone levels and lower your cortisol levels, and this will help you with the public speaking. It doesn't work really well with me, but I know a lot of people can benefit from this and have benefited from this. Breathing works for me. Maybe doing the crunching exercises where you tense your body up and then you release, it works. But what really, really works is preparing and practicing your speech. Speaking of course, back to an example because this is how it's best done. So when Barack Obama ran for president, he was on the he was preparing for that moment when he would become president of the United States, and he was speaking every day. So for 2 years, he was climbing up on podiums and speaking in front of people, hundreds and thousands of people at a time, and he was very well prepared. And before he even ran for president, he was a community builder and he was speaking to people all the time, and he was a lawyer as well, so he was speaking in front of people all the time. And so his public speaking skills were very good, honed, sharp, did a great job on the presidential trail, right? But then the moment came where election day came, and then he knew that he had a speech to deliver. He had one of two speeches to deliver, either an acceptance speech if he wins, or a speech that a concession speech where he concedes to the winner and offers his congratulations to the person who's running from the opposite party, right? How many times do you think Barack Obama practiced his acceptance speech? Knowing who he is, knowing the kind of speaker he is, knowing the fact that he had been speaking every day for 2 years in front of thousands of people, knowing that this is what he does for a living, that he speaks in front of court, in front of people, organizing communities, etc. How many times do you think he practiced his speech?
Like more than 20 times?
More than 20 times. Karina's saying a lot. Any of the ladies, do you have an answer? Yara, Dina, anybody?
Is there like a specific number?
Yeah.
I'd say like maybe twice daily or
twice daily. Okay, great. This is what you would do. Like, oh, I have a speech in a week. Let me practice twice daily because I want to nail it, right? I want to get this A+ in this course. He practiced 137 times. And that is Barack Obama, one of the best public speakers of our time. That should tell you something. So the point is, make sure you practice, because unless you practice, and by the way, he delivered a speech that looked so effortless. He wasn't even looking at the teleprompter. He was just maintaining eye contact with the audience because he knew that speech like the back of his hand. He nailed it. It was amazing. So remember, the best way to combat your anxiety is to prepare and practice. Moving on. So know your material, practice your speech, be confident, engage the audience, and speak loud and clear, because if you are anxious, you have a tendency to lower your voice. And if you lower your voice, the shakiness in your voice can be heard. So the best way to combat that is to raise your voice and speak louder. And of course, if you know your material and you know your words very well, so by delivering a speech, this is not the time to practice a new word that you just learned in some English class. No, this is a time when you speak about what you know, not what you do not know about. And of course, be confident that nobody knows your material more than you. And once you engage the audience and the audience reacts to you, then you feel a lot more confident about your speech. So I am skipping the conclusion because it's such the reason I'm skipping the conclusion is because I also want to give, first of all, it's been an hour. Second of all, I also want to give Karina some time with me as well. But before that, Razan, do you have any questions before we depart? I just want to remind you of a couple of things. What I want to remind you about is that we talked today about how to plan for a talk, the content, the delivery, the slides, and how to control your anxiety. This can be applied to any speech you want to give, whether it's a TED Talk, whether it's a Toastmaster speech, or whether it is a general speech that you're giving anywhere. If you apply these rules, it's so important. I just also want to remind you of the golden rule. Tell them what you're going to be telling them, tell them, and then tell them what you have told them. Use transitions and limit it
to three main points.
Main points that you're going to be talking.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. Thank you so much, Professor.
Do you have any questions, Razan?
No, I've asked you already my questions. Actually, I was really excited about the anxiety part. As for the others, they're really beneficial. يمكن I know them بطريقة غير مباشرة indirectly, but now that I've jotted them down, I'll definitely be looking at them more often whenever I prepare any speech. Hopefully, I'll get to be practicing more the TED Talks and the TEDxAUB Club. And
Yeah,
again, it's nice seeing you all here.
Same here. You're not going to be practicing. If you want hands-on something that helps you with your public speaking, it's Toastmasters Club. We prepare TED Talks for other speakers to come and talk at our events. So our events are more of like they involve community building, they involve sharing people's ideas on our platform, they involve helping these.
I've attended 2 Toastmaster sessions. That was 2 years ago. I wasn't an AUB student. I came as a visitor. They were fun. They were really fun. Hopefully, I'll register in the club and start attending. I believe they meet on Wednesday. They used to meet on Wednesdays.
Every Wednesday at 6. And it's a lovely club. If you want to hone your public speaking skills, this is a place to go. If you're more interested in something that is international, that helps you learn how these events are prepared and how they're put together, how they help build communities, how they help place people on the map, this is the place for you. But if you're just focused on building your public speaking skills, then Toastmasters it is.
All right, thank you so much.
All right,
I really enjoyed it. It was nice to see you all. I'm gonna leave. Have a good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Azan. Bye.
Goodbye.
Okay, so I'm going to Karina, I'm going to ask, do you still have some time?
Yeah, sure.
Great. I'm going to ask the cabinet members to leave, but first of all, one second, let me just